Story 1. One that is no longer in use, but I heard about it a long time ago and I thought it was genius. So during the 1970s, a Bulgarian human rights dissident was expelled from his home country to West Germany. He figured out his own private way to get back at Soviet communism. Once a month, he chose a dissident imprisoned in the Soviet Union and wrote him a personal letter. But before mailing it, he would take it to the post office and have it insured against it being opened or tampered with. The Soviet government naturally would intercept the letter, open it, and photocopy the contents. But because the letter was insured, they would have to pay the insurance award. If they didn't, they would be kicked out of the International Postal Union. The IPU let the Bulgarian dissident do this a maximum of once a month so as not to abuse the insurance system. So for years, this man would write a letter of support to an imprisoned human rights activist in the USSR, and 1 month later, he would receive a check from the USSR for a total of $400. Now this is pure genius. He was subtly messing with them while earning some cool cash at the same time. Story 2. In Denver, the city places about 10 photo radar vans at various locations around the city. And if you're speeding, the radar van snaps multiple pictures of the driver, the car, and the license plate. A few weeks later, a ticket arrives in the mail with the pictures and a $40 fine, $80 if in a work zone. However, there is a beautiful little clause at the bottom of the ticket that says, if you're not the person pictured in the violation notice, you may sign and mail in the not pictured driver affidavit located on the back of your notice of violation or penalty assessment notice. You must submit a legible, clear photocopy of your driver's license with the not pictured driver affidavit. The affidavit and supporting documentation will be reviewed by a Denver Police Department employee and a determination will be made regarding the identity of the actual driver. If further information is required, you may be contacted by the Photo Enforcement Unit. If it is determined that you are not the driver, the case against you will be dismissed. So, my parents figured out this loophole years ago and have had their cars registered to each other for many years for the sole reason of getting out of photo radar van speeding tickets. Story 3. A criminal barrister here. A couple of my favorites. A young man was arrested on possession charges after a vehicle search. He admits possession of grass and gives his reply to caution, which is recorded in the officer's notebook as quote-unquote, "Don't strip search me." The case is an anticipated guilty plea, but at first appearance, his instructions are that the officer threatened to strip search him if he didn't admit the grass were his, and he takes it to trial on this issue. The officer ever denies mentioning strip searching the defendant. At trial, the officer was questioned as to why the reply to caution was, "Don't strip search me," if the officer had never mentioned a strip search. It was pretty clever to set that up, in my opinion. So in England and Wales, when anybody arrests someone else, they are supposed to be cautioned, where they are told that they are under arrest, that they don't have to say anything, and that anything they do say can be recorded and used against them, and that it might harm their defense if they don't say something that they want to rely on later. It's similar to having your Miranda rights given to you. An officer is supposed to note at the time any response that the arrested person gives to that caution or note no reply in the notebook. If a comment is made, this is generally offered to the arrested person for signature to avoid disputes about what was or wasn't said later on. I do a lot of road traffic work as well, and some of the points taken are quite entertaining, such as putting the prosecution to strict proof in respect of the speed limit for a particular road and insisting upon a strict interpretation of what evidence would be permissible to that end. Story 4. I have earned over $90,000 by getting compensated by airlines. Now this is a simple trick that works well. If you know certain routes at your airport are always oversold, just buy a fully refundable fare a few days before the flight takes off. Usually this will be one or more of the oversold tickets. Just go to the airport, offer to give a receipt, and reap the rewards. If not needed, just refund your ticket. Usually I book 12 to 18 tickets in one day and hit one after another up until my planned departure in the evening. I try to spread it across 5+ airlines to avoid seeing the same staff. I fly for free everywhere in the world. Southwest has the best policy, usually $300 plus twice the value of your ticket. I have thousands of dollars of credit with all the airlines that I can't even use fast enough. I'll expand a little bit more on how to do this trick. The easiest way to find out if a flight is sold out is with Southwest Airlines. For example, if you look at Atlanta to Houston tomorrow, most of the cheaper wanna-get-away fares are sold out. This usually means the flight is almost fully booked. Southwest is notorious for overbooking about 2 to 4 seats on every flight, So now would be a great time to get a Business Select or Anytime fare. These fares are fully refundable, so no harm is done because the refund goes back to your card if you don't get the compensation. Just make sure you get to the gate as soon as they open and graciously offer to volunteer your seat. If they don't call on you, just cancel at least 10 minutes before departure. If you really want to be crafty, you can do this while you're at the airport. Oftentimes, airlines will sell overbooked seats up until 50 minutes before departure. So find a flight on American or United that is fully booked but has a fully refundable first-class ticket available for an insane amount of like $1,200. You buy that fare, check in right away online, then go straight to the gate and make up a stupid story and offer up your seat. If the flight is oversold and overbooked, more people checked in than there are seats, then you're in prime territory. Usually they only offer $300 or $400 in voucher money, but that's good enough. PM me if you want other details on other tricks. I literally have not paid for a single flight, hotel, or rental car in 6 years. Free flight, food, accommodations, and is completely legal? How do I sign up for this gig? Story 5. I used to work for a background check company. If you are declined employment because of your background check, we are legally obligated to give you a copy of what we gave the employer. And if you contest it, we have to contact the company that bought the report and tell them that they can't deny employment based on that report until we confirm your identity. The thing is, if you say that wasn't you and it had to be someone with the same name or a case of identity theft, it is almost impossible for us to prove you are lying in a timely manner. There are no guidelines on how long we have to allow the subject to dispute the report or reasons why they can't dispute it, and each attempt to confirm the record will take at least a week, often longer. I worked on one, and the report came up with the same first and last name and the same date of birth in a jurisdiction we confirmed the subject lived in at that time. It was as solid as any report we could provide since our electronic search database did not have SSNs or mugshots. The guy said it wasn't him, so we called the client, tell them there were some problems with the report and we have to investigate it further. We contact the jurisdiction the record came from and ask if they have more identifying information in their hard copies. Yep, they have his social security number. It matches. They sent us copies. And then a week or so later, we contact the subject. The county reports that your SSN was provided. Someone stole my identity. It wasn't me. Contact the county and ask them if they have any mugshots. We have to send them a written request, and it will take time to find them since they were several years old. The client is calling us back almost every day to see if the report is completed yet. It's been almost a month. We tell them we should have a mugshot for confirmation soon, and when we eventually do, we send a copy of the picture to the recruiter. Is this your applicant? It looks like it could be him. They ask him if that mugshot is him. Nope, that's not me. When the client hears that, we still can't authorize the report. They give up and hire the guy anyway. In a strange coincidence, I ended up working in the cubicle next to him a couple of years later. When he finds out I used to work for backgroundchecks.com, he laughs and tells me how he almost didn't get the job because of us. And I remember because I was the investigator who did his report. Asked if it really was him, he laughed and said, "Of course not, someone stole his identity." But he was laughing, and knowing his personal proclivities by then, I knew it was him. Now some companies will just say they're not hiring the applicant for a different reason, but that is really risky. The applicant has a paper trail showing that he was considered for employment. A report was ordered and he was told he was no longer considered. He has a good case against the employer and would have one against us if we didn't tell the client that the report was unconfirmed. Most large companies won't risk it. Story 6. We rented a store last year and we opened a small shop. It's in a small complex with 5 other shops. The owners of the property do not pay the bank for their loan and it gets repossessed by the bank and put it up for auction. These same guys go and buy it again at auction but with a different company. They have several. At the auction, they have to come up with 20%, I think, and then they pay that, but then nothing else. Yet they take the rental income this whole time. It takes about a year before repossession happens again, and they just repeat the same trick. The 20% they pay each time is way less than the rental income for a year, so they just keep on making this profit year after year after year. They have now done it twice since we started renting there. I don't know how long this has been going on. We spoke to the officer of the court at the last auction and he admitted to knowing what was going on, but said that they were not breaking any laws other than not paying their debt. Story 7. Tax loss selling. I was working for a wealth management firm in Canada in November of 2015 when Justin Trudeau became the Prime Minister. His campaign was largely centered around cutting taxes on the middle class and raising them on the upper class. All of our clients were very wealthy and impacted by the tax changes. Any capital gains on investments in Canada are subject to taxation. We spent the next couple of months engaging in tax loss selling, which is essentially meaning selling off any securities, stocks, bonds, etc., where the client had a capital loss. Now, this offsets any capital gains that would have otherwise been taxed and gets rid of bad investments that didn't work out. For example, if a client had $50,000 in capital gains, 50% or $25,000 of that gain is subject to tax. By selling off investments when there was a $50,000 capital loss, the client's net gain for that year is actually $0, which obviously cannot be taxed. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but if all of your clients had $20 million in capital gains for 1 year combined, that's $10 million that the government didn't get to tax. Story 8. Here in Costa Rica, it's quite hard for foreigners to get a work visa or residency. However, it is very easy to enter the country as a tourist. The only requirement for tourists is that they can't be here for more than 3 months. So instead of going through the whole process of getting a work visa, at least 80% of the people I know here with foreign blood simply just drive up to the Nicaraguan border and come back every 3 months, allowing them to become what is known as a quote-unquote perpetual tourist. I know some people who have been exploiting that loophole completely legal for about a decade. The classic visa run, eh? Costa Rica? Count me in for that adventure. Who knows, I might just end up considering it my visa run HQ. Now, if you're into these crafty legal tricks, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more sneaky tales. Story 9. This is on a much smaller scale than most things presented here, but I'm pretty proud of it. In my senior year of high school in Texas, class of 2002 to 2003, my friends and I found out that if you have too many absences, you have to make up for them during Saturday school. Well, it turns out that Saturday school is only half a day, and it makes up for 3 absences. So me and 3 other friends would constantly skip school. We didn't do sports, so we had all our credits anyway well before the end of the year. And then on Friday nights, we would have a LAN party and play Warcraft 3 or Star Wars Galaxies all night. Then the next morning, tired as hell, we'd drive to Saturday school and just kind of sit and stare or doze off for about 4 hours, and then have all of our absences erased. Story 10. A plaintiff who had a tractor accident in one state waited until after the statute of limitations had passed to go seek legal counsel. Now, most lawyers would have given up. Instead, this genius filed a lawsuit in a different state that had more permissive statute of limitations laws, then filed a motion to transfer the case back to the plaintiff's home state for the convenience of the parties involved. Motion granted. Now, in law school, you quickly find out that great legal loopholes are Hollywood fiction for the most part, but this is the stuff of legend and really clever lawyering. There's more to this story, but I'm drunk and sleepy. Story 11. I have a cool one. My buddy overstayed by about 10 years in the US, ran a company, paid taxes, no problem. But he couldn't fly anywhere, obviously, and if he got into trouble with the law, he could have been deported. Anyway, one day he got roughed up by a taxi driver. They tried to press charges, but for some reason they couldn't touch the guy despite knowing where he lives, works, etc. His lawyer found out that he could apply for a victim of violent crime visa. He did, and now he's legal and can exit and enter the country without fear of deportation. There's obviously more to the story, but that's the gist of it. Is this why I see a bunch of legal immigrants who've got that "I've seen some crazy stuff" look? Who knew a tussle with a taxi driver could be the key to a legal visa? Story 12. Are you broke? Are you in school? Is your significant other or a close friend in school? If you get married, it costs only the license if you don't put on the party or someone else pays. Then you no longer have to report your parents' income for FAFSA. Some LGBT couples I know use this to get around having been disowned but still being young enough to report their parents' income. Also, marrying means you may not have health insurance through your parents anymore, or you never did. And if you need health care, you don't have to count the student loans and whatnot of the student spouse as income. So that means your income is only from whatever crap job you do have, or none if you're also a student. That means now, as one household with a low income, you might qualify for a state or federal medical assistance where you make too much to qualify as a single person. I did this. In my state, I was a law student. My wife had an undergrad degree and some experience, so she had various office jobs from $12 to $15 an hour starting out. Obviously, this was not enough to let her buy into the crappy work insurance plan that barely covered anything, and she had had bad depression at the time. I was lucky enough one semester to take on a seminar on poverty law where one learned about how to get different social assistance programs and legal help for indigent or low-income clients. And through that, I learned that the Medicaid expansion on income meant my wife could qualify income-wise for free health care if we got married. And she really needed it now. We had a very spur-of-the-moment wedding. We never told our families why it was so fast, though. Also, you get a pretty huge tax refund as a poor head of household, while the combination of that income plus student money lets you live to an okay standard. We had a small apartment right in the city, pets, decent and adequate food and clothes, a car about 5 years old, Netflix and movie discount cards, and weekly treats for ourselves. Then I immediately consolidated our student loans upon my graduation, and we both applied for income-based repayment. It's worked out okay. Since we now both work because I passed the bar exam, we both have to pay some money, but are still able to raise our standard of living as we get more income. And I can write off bar association dues and the cost of continuing classes on the taxes. Story 13. This one is because of my roommates. They would raid a Pizza Hut nearby us and get a free pizza. Go down, get the pizza, rate the Pizza Hut, and get a free pizza. Basically, they never had to pay for a pizza from Pizza Hut. However, because they aren't complete a-holes, they would also buy other stuff like drinks, desserts, or garlic bread. Story 14. I bought a historic office building that used to be a school using a residential home loan many years ago. This worked because zoning was R residential. I put very little money down, had low payments, and kept the whole transaction simple. I bought it for around $400,000, sold it for $800,000, and legally used it for my office for 4 years. Story 15. If anyone wants to find the actual article, I believe there was a man in Texas, assuming he was homeless or poor, who got a nice 3 to 4 bedroom home for a whole $35. When the previous owners left their suburb home, I assume due to a lack of payment, he paid the fee to have the home transferred to him. I believe the only stipulation was to stay for 3 years and it becomes his. No mortgage, no rent, just a $35 piece of paper. The neighborhood was pretty angry, and I applaud the man for his craftiness. I just looked it up, though. It turns out it was $16, and he stayed in the house for 7 months before the bank did its banky stuff to take back the house. Just Google $16 house Texas man, and it should pop right up. Now, this guy's a genius. He did his research and worked to get that house. If I were his neighbor, I would definitely want to be his friend. Story 16. I worked at a restaurant where we had a promotion during the holidays. If you buy a $25 gift card, you get a $5 gift card as well as a bottle of sauce. I bought a ton of gift cards with my own money. I got the extra $5 gift cards and bottles. I sold the bottles of sauce for cheap on a local garage sale site. They retail for $8 from the restaurant. I also use the gift cards on all my cash tables. Customer pays with cash. I use the gift cards to close out their check and use the cash to pay myself back for the gift cards. So basically, it was a free $5 for me for every $25 gift card I bought. I also won the gift card contest we had too. Story 17. I know that a lot of law enforcement agencies the world over have trouble getting the perpetrator if they have an identical twin who is willing to also say they did it. People have walked free because of it. Not just identical twins, but people with the same name. A friend of mine borrowed his son's car and got caught speeding. Both he and his son have the same first name, middle name, and surname. They sent the fine to his son, who said he wasn't driving, but his dad was. So they resent the fine to his dad, but when his dad tried to pay, they couldn't process it because of confusion over the name. They have been trying to pay the fine for a couple of months now, and have explained the problem, but the people issuing the fine keep screwing it up somehow. To make matters even worse, the grandfather also has the same name and now he's being sent the fine too. They aren't even trying to avoid paying. Story 18. It's a pretty small loophole on the bigger scheme of things, but for a broke college student like myself, it's pretty important to me. So we have an IHOP on campus. One of the most filling meals it offers comes with hash browns, a choice of meat, 2 eggs, and 2 pancakes. It's around $10 for the whole thing. However, my college also offers a meal plan that allows us to swipe our college ID at certain restaurants for certain meals. For example, at that same IHOP, you can get hash browns, a choice of meat, and 2 eggs for 1 swipe. Getting a side of 2 pancakes is $1.15. I've done this quite a bit as I'm getting a $10 meal for just around $2. It may not be the biggest loophole out there, but damn, it is nice to have one. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what loophole did you exploit for years before someone finally found out? You gotta try the tips from story number 2. You will not be disappointed. And I'll see you in that video. Thank you for watching this one.